Hi, I'm Steve from Resolute Private Wealth and welcome to our May update. Can you believe it? It was only early last month where we had the federal budget announced, and obviously this weekend we had the federal election where Scott Morrison and the Liberals have remained in power and in government. So what this means for individuals is that there won't be any changes to the Australian franking credit policy or the refund of franking credits. There's no changes to negative gearing. There's no changes to the capital gains discount, and there's no changes to the amount that you can contribute to super on an after-tax basis, which is all really good news. It also means that there won't be any further taxes applied to super, and for individuals that are aged 65 and 66, there's going to be greater flexibility for you to contribute to super if you're not working, or if you're looking to contribute some money to super and use the bring forward super provisions. So this gives you a little bit more flexibility around your future retirement planning if you have ceased work and are over 65. I also wanted to talk about interest rates. The Reserve Bank is expected to cut interest rates a further 2 times this year, or by 0.5%. Now, I don't expect the banks to pass on the full level of rate cut or rate cuts. However, anything that is passed on is extremely helpful for borrowers. Now on that, banks are being incredibly aggressive and there is a lot of discounting taking place for fixed interest loans at the moment and also variable loans. So for anyone that has a loan, I recommend that you have a look at the rate that you are paying and make sure it's competitive. If you are unsure as to whether your rate is competitive, please let me know and we can have a look at that and determine whether you go back to your existing bank and renegotiate a better deal or look to go elsewhere. Now with rates coming down, that's good news for borrowers, not so good news for savers and for people with money in cash and term deposits, where your likely interest rate being on offer is going to be lower in the future than what it is now. And so what we're seeing and what we're going to see is there going to be more investors looking to invest in riskier assets to generate higher levels of income, because what they're generating on cash just isn't sufficient to meet their needs. And so I think what we're going to see is we're going to see more money flow into shares, and in particular shares that offer good, high, fully franked dividends, especially now since there's going to be no change to the refund in franking credit policy. Earlier I discussed loans and interest rates, and I thought it's also important to discuss what's happening with banks and how they assess borrowers' borrowing capacity. At present, APRA impose on the banks what they call a 7% serviceability test, which means when a bank assesses a borrower's lending capacity, they use an interest rate of 7%, so there's some buffer in their calculation in the event that interest rates move up from where they are now all the way up to 7%. Now, APRA is in the discussions of reducing that threshold from 7 to 6.5%, which will mean borrowers will have a higher lending capacity. And I think that's good news, because what's happened over the last 6 to 12 months is that the banks have tightened their lending policy, which has meant that the property market has flattened and in some areas declined in value. So when we consider that that borrowing threshold will reduce from 7 to 6.5%, we've got the likelihood of falling interest rates, we don't have changes to negative gearing, and we don't have changes to capital gains discounts, then I think we're going to have a pretty supportive environment for property going forward. Now we're almost at the end of May, so it's getting towards tax time, and so at this point in time I recommend that you have a look at your last 10 months worth of income and have a look at your tax deductions and see whether you can bring forward any tax deductions into this financial year. You need to have a look at your super contributions and whether you need to make some after-tax super contributions this financial year, or top up your salary sacrifice, or make a deductible super contribution. And also from a tax planning point of view, identify whether you've made any capital gains throughout the year and either discuss that with me, your accountant, to determine what steps you can take to mitigate that capital gain this financial year. If you are unsure as to what to be looking for to help you with your tax this year, please get in contact with me and I'll be happy to help. Thank you.